November 23rd, 1939. Shubarinas mudflats, Temps Estuary. Every metal button had been cut from his tunic, his wristwatch left with the shore party, even the steel eyelets ripped from his boots. Commander John Ouvry walked toward the dark, cylindrical object half buried in the mud, carrying nothing metallic, armed only with non-magnetic brass implements and the knowledge that a single mistake could vaporize him and his team. The mine, dropped from a German aircraft the night before, was their first sight of Hitler's secret weapon. Ouvry could not know that what he did in the next hour would set off a technological chess match, exposing the Third Reich's deepest vulnerabilities. The device before him embodied 3 years of German confidence. A scientific edge they believed would starve Britain into submission without a shot being fired. German naval intelligence had boasted to the Kriegsmarine that their magnetic mines were undetectable, unstoppable, and would take the British years to counter. Within 6 weeks, every major Allied warship would be fitted with countermeasures. Within 5 months, over 3,000 Allied vessels would be effectively invisible to German magnetic mines. The speed of that reversal sent shockwaves through German naval command that echoed until the war's end. The revelation began on September 3, 1939, mere hours after Britain declared war. U-boats, U-13, U-14 and U-17 slipped from base carrying cargoes more valuable than torpedoes, TMB magnetic mines, weapons German scientists promised would revolutionize naval warfare. Unlike contact mines that detonate only when struck, these devices sensed the magnetic signature of steel hulls passing overhead and fired beneath the keel. The explosion transmitted through incompressible water to break a ship's back. German scientists had calculated that a steel hull concentrated the Earth's magnetic field and produced a distinctive signature detectable from depths up to 50 feet, elegant in conception and devastating in effect. Captain Lieutenant Heinrich Lieber, commanding U-38, would later write in his diary, discovered after Germany's surrender, "We carry the weapon that will bring England to its knees. No minesweeper can find them. No method exists to defeat them. The Tommies will starve before they understand what strikes them." His confidence reflected the Kriegsmarine's belief in technical superiority. By mid-September, mysterious blasts began sinking ships in waters thought swept clear of conventional mines. The steamship Magdeburg vanished in a colossal explosion on September 10th, followed 6 days later by the city of Paris. Unlike contact mine hits, which showed localized punctures at the point of impact, survivors described catastrophic structural failure. Ships breaking in half, lifted by a force erupting from beneath. In October and November 1939, Britain lost more than 200,000 tons of shipping to these mines. Admiralty orders closed ports, rerouted convoys, and watched helplessly as vessels detonated in supposedly safe channels. Each incident paralyzed lanes for days, while minesweepers dragged cables through waters that held no traditional mines. At HMS Vernon, the Royal Navy's mine warfare school in Portsmouth, scientists and officers worked day and night to understand the new threat. They knew magnetic mines existed in theory. Britain had built primitive versions in 1918. But the German designs were far more sophisticated. The Royal Navy examined over 200 mines in October and November 1939, all contact types. None explained the mysterious sinkings. The breakthrough came from inter-service rivalry within Germany. The Luftwaffe, eager to claim credit for choking British shipping, began parachute dropping their own magnetic mines. The Luftmine A and Luftmine B weighed up to 1,000 kilograms and descended slowly beneath silk canopies. On the night of November 22, 1939, a Heinkel 59 float plane approached the Temps Estuary at low altitude. British anti-aircraft crews opened fire. The pilot, startled, released his mines prematurely and fled. One mine came down on the mudflats at Schubis during low tide. Army sentries at the nearby garrison spotted a parachute draped across the mud and promptly alerted naval intelligence. Commander John Ouvry, then a lieutenant commander and render mine safe officer at HMS Vernon, was already investigating reports of German parachute mines in the area. When word reached him of the intact device, he immediately grasped its significance. This was the secret weapon destroying British shipping. Approaching it, however, required exceptional courage and meticulous preparation. The mine lay 500 yards from shore, partly buried in mud that would be covered by the next high tide. Ouvry assembled his team: Lieutenant Commander Roger Lewis, Chief Petty Officer Charles Baldwin, and able seaman Alexander Verncombe. Each man stripped himself of anything magnetic: belt buckles, keys, coins, watches, even the metal grommets from their boots. And they carried tools forged specially from non-magnetic brass. As Ouvry closed in on the mine, he later recalled, "Every step might be my last." We knew the Germans were clever. There might be an anti-tampering devices, time delays, or booby traps. But we had to find out how it worked. The outcome of the naval war could hinge on what they uncovered. The mine measured 8 feet in length and 2 feet across, crafted from aluminum to avoid detection by magnetic sweepers. Carefully and methodically, Ouvry began dismantling the fuse mechanism, while Lewis recorded detailed notes from a safe distance. Should the mine detonate, at least the next team would know what had killed them. After an hour of painstaking work, Ouvry successfully removed the magnetic trigger. The recovered fuse was rushed to physicist Albert B. Wood at Portsmouth, who, with the help of W.F.B. Shaw and H.W. Kelly, dismantled it the following day, revealing its internal induction magnetometer. The German secret became clear. A magnetic needle detected changes in the local magnetic field. When a steel ship passed overhead, the needle moved, completing an electrical circuit that detonated 300 kilograms of explosive. Winston Churchill, then First Lord of the Admiralty, was immediately briefed. King George VI personally awarded Ouvry the Distinguished Service Order on December 19, 1939, at HMS Vernon. Yet the true prize was not medals, but the knowledge of how to neutralize the weapon. The solution came from an unexpected source: Commander Charles Goodfellow, a Canadian chemist in the Royal Naval Volunteer Reserve. Drawing on the unit of magnetic field strength, the Gauss, named for Carl Friedrich Gauss, he reasoned that if ships produced magnetic fields, those fields could be cancelled. The principle was simple. A ship's hull concentrated the Earth's magnetic field, North Pole down in the northern hemisphere. By wrapping electrical cables around the hull and passing current through them, an opposing magnetic field could be generated, neutralizing the ship's signature and rendering it invisible to German mines. Initially, major warships had copper degaussing coils installed around their hulls, powered by the ship's electrical system. HMS Ark Royal, one of the Royal Navy's most important aircraft carriers, was among the first to be equipped. However, permanent installations were costly and required significant power, beyond the capabilities of smaller vessels. Goodfellow developed a simpler technique called wiping. A current-carrying cable, dragged along the hull, temporarily cancelled the magnetic signature. The procedure took hours and offered protection for several months and could be performed at any port with basic electrical equipment. The scale of implementation was enormous. During the 4 days before the Dunkirk evacuation in May 1940, over 400 ships were degaussed. Stations operated around the clock at every major British port, treating merchant ships, warships, fishing boats, anything with a steel hull. By January 1940, just 6 weeks after Ouvry's operation, the first Wellington bomber, equipped with a magnetic mine-sweeping ring, successfully destroyed a German magnetic mine on January 8th. The aircraft carried a 48-foot diameter aluminum ring energized with electrical current, generating a massive magnetic field that triggered mines from a safe altitude. The Germans were stunned by Britain's rapid response. Corvette Captain Friedrich Ruge, head of German mine development, wrote in February 1940, "The British have implemented countermeasures with impossible speed. Our 3-year advantage has vanished in 3 months. Every calculation of enemy capability has proven worthless." German confidence in technological superiority began to crumble. By March 1940, aerial reconnaissance photographed degaussing cables wrapped around British warships. A shot of the ocean liner Queen Mary in New York Harbor revealed its degaussing coil, showing that the technology had been shared with the Americans even before their entry into the war. By August 1940, Churchill told Parliament that the magnetic mine threat had been effectively neutralized. In just 5 months, roughly 1,000 ships were wiped, with another 2,000 carrying their own coils. Admiral Karl Dönitz, commander of Germany's U-boat fleet, recorded his frustration in May 1940. "I doubt whether men have ever had to rely on such a useless weapon," referring to magnetic torpedoes employing the same technology as the mines. The magnetic triggers that should have guaranteed hits were failing against degaussed ships, a blow to German naval morale. Captain Lieutenant Fritz Ulrich of U-30, which had laid some of the first magnetic mines, wrote to his brother, "Our secret weapon is secret no more. The British adapt faster than we innovate. Every technical advantage we possess seems temporary, fleeting." HMS Belfast, one of the Royal Navy's newest cruisers, had fallen victim to a German magnetic mine on November 21, 1939, laid by U-21 on November 4th. The mine broke her back, damaged engines and boilers, and injured 46 crew members. Repairs took nearly 3 years, yet Belfast was among the last major warships to succumb to magnetic mines. The preserved mine displayed aboard the ship today stands as a testament to both vulnerability and triumph. German attempts to counter the British measures revealed the limitations of their industrial and scientific capacity. They designed pressure-sensitive mines that detected the water displacement of passing ships, and acoustic mines that listened for engine noise. Yet each innovation was quickly countered. The British created noise-making devices to trigger acoustic mines and adjusted ship speeds to fool pressure sensors. More damaging than these technical setbacks was the exposure of German industrial limitations. Germany had planned to produce 50,000 magnetic mines, but by spring 1940 had manufactured only 1,500. These mines required advanced magnetic sensors, and Germany lacked sufficient supplies of nickel and copper for mass production. Meanwhile, Britain demonstrated its industrial strength. Within months, they built thousands of degaussing systems, laid millions of feet of copper cable, and equipped their entire fleet with countermeasures. The United States, still neutral, began degaussing its merchant vessels and shared intelligence with Britain. German engineers scrambled to develop new variants. They created mines with delayed arming mechanisms that would not activate until multiple ships had passed, aiming to defeat regular sweeping operations. They added ship counters that triggered only on the third or fifth vessel. Each innovation increased complexity, required rarer materials, and demanded more precise manufacturing. By late 1940, German naval intelligence intercepted British communications, which discussed mine countermeasures with casual confidence. Ship captains reported degaussing schedules as routine maintenance. The weapon meant to strangle Britain without risking German lives had become a minor nuisance. This failure rippled through German strategic planning. Operation Sea Lion, the planned invasion of Britain, relied on magnetic mines to protect landing beaches from the Royal Navy. Without effective mine barriers, German invasion barges would have been vulnerable to British warships. The mine's ineffectiveness contributed to the indefinite postponement of the invasion. German submariners began refusing to carry mines, preferring to reserve torpedo space for conventional weapons. U-boat commander Herbert Schulzer wrote, "Why waste space on weapons the enemy has already defeated? Every mine we carry is a torpedo we cannot fire at a real target." The technological defeat highlighted deeper German weaknesses. Their vaunted scientific edge proved hollow when confronted with British adaptability and American industrial support. The same nation that could produce advanced magnetic sensors could not manufacture them in sufficient numbers. A regime that promised technological miracles delivered weapons that worked perfectly in theory, but failed when faced with determined countermeasures. The Double L sweep, developed by Charles Goodhue, consisted of two cables towed behind non-magnetic vessels, with electrical current passing between them to create a magnetic field capable of clearing 10 acres of seabed at once. By March 1940, this method had destroyed 74 mines, and by June, 300 had been neutralized. Sweeping operations revealed both the extent and futility of German mining efforts. British minesweepers systematically cleared channels, often recovering dozens of sophisticated mines that had consumed Germany's valuable resources. Each recovered mine offered new intelligence about German capabilities and limits. American observers, officially neutral but increasingly supportive of Britain, watched closely. Captain Jerry Land of the U.S. Maritime Commission reported to Washington, "The British have defeated the German magnetic mine through scientific understanding and industrial application. They share their methods freely with us. German secrecy has gained them nothing." The U.S. Navy began its own Degaussing program, setting up facilities at major ports. American shipyards incorporated Degaussing systems into new ships. Liberty ships, the cargo vessels that would sustain Allied armies, were built with integrated degaussing coils. By the time the U.S. entered the war, its entire merchant fleet was protected. German efforts to maintain mine effectiveness became increasingly desperate. They developed combination mines that required both magnetic and acoustic triggers. These complex devices often failed entirely. German sailors darkly joked that their mines were more hazardous to handle than to the enemy. The revelation of mine warfare exposed fundamental flaws in Nazi ideology. The regime that proclaimed German racial and intellectual superiority watched British scientists, including Jewish refugees, solve their secret weapons in weeks. A nation that promised technological miracles through Aryan genius was outmatched by democratic cooperation and industrial strength. Dr. Rudolf Kuhnhold, who had worked on German radar development, learned of the rapid defeat of magnetic mines through neutral sources. He wrote privately, "The mine failure demonstrates our systematic weakness. We work in isolation. They cooperate. We guard secrets. They share solutions. We promise miracles. They deliver results." By mid-1941, magnetic mines were so ineffective that German naval strategy abandoned them as a primary weapon. Resources were shifted to U-boat construction and conventional torpedoes. The weapon designed to win the war without risking German lives had consumed enormous resources for minimal results. In 1942 alone, German U-boats laid just 96 mines, which caused losses compared to hundreds of ships sunk by torpedoes. The complex mining operations, which required careful navigation into enemy waters and exposed submarines to detection, had become essentially pointless. Commanders preferred direct attacks where results could at least be confirmed. The psychological effect on German naval officers lingered throughout the conflict. Captain Zor Hermann von Fischl, captured in 1943, told interrogators, "When we realized how quickly you neutralized the magnetic mine, we understood the war was lost. If you could defeat our top-secret weapon in weeks, what chance did we have?" British scientific teams, emboldened by their successes, approached each new German weapon with confidence. When acoustic mines appeared, noise-making countermeasures were developed within months. When pressure mines were introduced in 1943, ships adjusted speeds and routes to defeat them. Every German innovation faced a rapid Allied response. The Degaussing program's success had strategic implications beyond mine defense. It showcased Allied scientific collaboration, with British, American, and Canadian scientists freely sharing information. It highlighted industrial capacity, with thousands of installations operating continuously. It demonstrated intelligence capabilities as captured German weapons were quickly analyzed and countered. German attempts to gather intelligence on Allied countermeasures repeatedly failed. Spy networks could report on degaussing operations, but could not provide technical specifics. Aerial reconnaissance could reveal degaussing cables, but not the electrical specifications. U-boat commanders observed degaussed ships, but could not comprehend the science behind their protection. The contrast with German secrecy was stark. While the Nazis compartmentalized information and restricted scientific collaboration, the Allies openly shared knowledge. British degaussing techniques were published in technical journals accessible to any Allied scientist. American improvements were shared immediately with Britain. Canadian innovations were implemented fleet-wide. By 1943, degaussing had become routine, rarely appearing in operational reports. Ships were degaussed on schedule, just like refueling or reprovisioning. What seemed miraculous in 1940 had become routine maintenance. German mines remained a threat, but they were manageable hazards rather than war-winning weapons. The industrial scale of degaussing operations dwarfed German production capabilities. Britain alone ran over 100 permanent degaussing stations, each able to process multiple ships daily. Thousands of technicians were trained in the procedure. Miles of copper cable were produced monthly. The organizational achievement matched the technical success. German naval architects attempted to design non-magnetic ships using wood and non-ferrous metals, but these vessels were costly, slow, and vulnerable. The few built proved that avoiding magnetism was impractical compared to neutralizing it. German innovation was limited by resource constraints that did not affect the Allies. The psychological impact of the mine wars extended to German civilians. Propaganda had promised that magnetic mines would starve Britain into submission. When British shipping continued despite the mines, German confidence in technological superiority waned. Workers in mine factories questioned why they produced weapons the enemy had already defeated. Allied psychological warfare exploited the mine failure. BBC broadcasts detailed degaussing successes, often exaggerated to demoralize German listeners. Leaflets dropped over German naval bases showed photographs of degaussed ships safely passing through minefields. The message was clear. German secret weapons held no secrets from the Allies. The scientific mobilization prompted by the magnetic mine threat created lasting advantages for the Allies. Research teams formed to counter mines later worked on radar, sonar, and code breaking. Scientists who learned cross-national cooperation continued collaborating throughout the war. German scientists who developed the magnetic mine watched its failure with professional interest and personal despair. Dr. Helmuth Walter, a contributor to mine development, later reflected, "We created an elegant weapon defeated by a simple solution. Our failure was not technical, but systematic. We worked in isolation while our enemies worked together." The economic impact of the failed mine campaign strained German resources. Each sophisticated mine cost roughly 3,000 Reichsmarks, equivalent to 3 months' wages for a skilled worker. Thousands were produced and deployed, but the return on investment was negative. Resources consumed exceeded the damage inflicted on Allied shipping. Allied convoy operations, initially paralyzed by fears of magnetic mines, resumed confidently once degaussing was widespread. Merchant sailors who had avoided mined waters returned to duty, assured their ships were protected. Insurance rates, which had surged due to mine losses, dropped as degaussing proved effective. Germany's attempt at economic warfare through mines backfired. The technological cat-and-mouse game continued, but momentum had decisively shifted. When Germany deployed the Oyster pressure mine in June 1944 during the Normandy invasion to disrupt Allied supply lines, the weapons failed. Allied ships simply adjusted speeds and routes, having anticipated this development years in advance. By 1944, German submarine commanders viewed mine-laying missions as punishment duty. The weapons they carried became increasingly sophisticated yet less effective. U-boat war diaries from this period reflected resignation rather than enthusiasm. Commanders recorded laying mines with no expectation of success, fulfilling orders that seemed pointless. Intelligence gathered from captured German mines provided insights beyond mine warfare. Analysis of components revealed German manufacturing capabilities, material shortages, and quality control issues. Serial numbers on parts allowed Allied intelligence to track production rates and factory locations. Mines became windows into German industrial capacity. British confidence in their scientific superiority, validated by the magnetic mine victory, influenced strategic decisions throughout the war. When Germany deployed V-weapons, acoustic homing torpedoes, and jet aircraft. Allied leaders remained confident that countermeasures would be found. The swift neutralization of the magnetic mine had demonstrated that German secret weapons could be countered. The organizational structures established to manage degaussing became templates for other wartime programs. Coordination between military, scientific, and industrial sectors, developed during the mine crisis, was later applied to radar development, convoy protection, and invasion planning. The emergency response to magnetic mines created enduring institutional capabilities. In the Pacific Theater, American forces applied lessons learned from the European mine war. Japanese magnetic mines, modeled on German designs, were quickly rendered ineffective using degaussing techniques refined against German weapons. Knowledge transfer was seamless and the response immediate. What had taken months to develop against Germany was implemented in days against Japan. German post-war analysis of the magnetic mine failure was brutally honest. Admiral Dönitz wrote in his memoirs, "We placed too much faith in technical superiority without considering enemy countermeasures. The magnetic mine should have been one weapon among many, not a war-winning miracle. Our failure was conceptual, not technical." Karl Kaufmann, a Hamburg observer who had witnessed mine production, wrote after the war, "We watched thousands of workers produce weapons the enemy had already defeated. The regime's promise of wonder weapons was exposed as fantasy. The magnetic mine's failure was the first crack in our belief in German superiority." Veterans of the mine war carried its lessons into the post-war period. British scientists who had worked on degaussing became leaders in civilian technology development. American naval officers who had implemented countermeasures shaped Cold War naval strategy. The magnetic mine crisis created expertise that extended far beyond its original purpose. The preserved German magnetic mine displayed aboard HMS Belfast in London stands as a monument to multiple achievements. It represents Ouvry's courage in defusing an unknown weapon, British scientific ingenuity in devising countermeasures, and Allied industrial power in implementing solutions. Most importantly, it symbolizes the defeat of Nazi assumptions about technological and racial superiority. School groups visiting HMS Belfast often ask why such a simple-looking device caused so much fear. Guides explain that the mine's true power lay not in its explosive force, but in its psychological impact. For a brief period, it made the seas perilous and Britain vulnerable. Its rapid defeat proved that no secret weapon could overcome determination, cooperation, and industrial capacity. The speed of the Allied response to magnetic mines astonished not only Germany, but neutral observers worldwide. Swedish naval attaché Eric Klint reported to Stockholm, "In 10 weeks, the British have nullified a weapon system Germany spent 3 years developing. This demonstrates not just technical capability, but organizational superiority that will determine the war's outcome." Swiss intelligence monitoring both sides noted fundamental differences in approach. Their reports described German scientists working in enforced secrecy, forbidden to discuss problems or share solutions. Meanwhile, Allied scientists held conferences, published papers, and freely exchanged ideas. This contrast explained the differing results. The magnetic mine episode revealed deeper differences in how the opposing sides approached warfare. Germany sought decisive technical advantages through secret weapons. The Allies relied on systematic responses, industrial scaling, and information sharing. The German approach produced spectacular innovations that failed when countered. The Allied approach created steady advantages that accumulated into victory. Modern naval historians regard the magnetic mine crisis as a turning point, not in the war's outcome, but in its character. The rapid Allied response showed that the war would be won through industrial production and scientific adaptation, rather than secret weapons or tactical brilliance. Germany could innovate, but could not sustain. The Allies could absorb, adapt, and overwhelm. The human dimension of the magnetic mine's defeat resonated through German naval ranks. Young officers who joined the Navy believing in German technical superiority watched that belief crumble. Enlisted sailors, told they served the world's most advanced navy, discovered they were outnumbered and outproduced. The psychological effect preceded and amplified later military defeats. Allied sailors, initially terrified of invisible mines that could destroy their ships without warning, gained confidence from degaussing success. The ships being degaussed became a source of reassurance in dangerous waters. Merchant sailors who had once considered refusing risky voyages returned to duty, confident that science now protected them. The fear that had once immobilized shipping gave way to routine precautions. The transfer of technology from military to civilian applications began even during the war. Degaussing techniques were adapted to protect industrial equipment from magnetic interference. The precision measurement of magnetic fields, developed for mine detection, enhanced navigation systems. Scientists who had raced to counter German mines later applied their expertise to peaceful purposes. The institutional memory of the magnetic mine crisis shaped Allied planning for the invasion of Europe. Anticipating that Germany would deploy advanced mines to protect invasion beaches, Allied forces prepared comprehensive countermeasures. Specialized mine-sweeping units were trained and equipped, and the invasion fleet was thoroughly degassed. German mine barriers, when encountered, were quickly neutralized using techniques first developed in 1940s intelligence. Services on both sides studied the magnetic mine, episode for lessons in technical, intelligence and countermeasure development. The British success in rapidly analyzing and defeating the weapon became a textbook example of effective technical intelligence. Conversely, German failure to anticipate countermeasures became a cautionary tale of overconfidence in secret weapons. By the war's end, magnetic mines had become almost irrelevant to naval operations. Allied ships were routinely degaussed, sweeping techniques were perfected, and detection equipment was highly sophisticated. German mines still caused occasional losses, but these were tactical inconveniences rather than strategic threats. The weapon that had been designed to transform naval warfare had become a historical footnote. The preserved technical documents from both sides reveal the vast difference between German and Allied approaches. German records emphasize secrecy, compartmentalization, and technical sophistication, while Allied records stress cooperation, standardization, and mass production. The German approach produced brilliant failures. The Allied approach produced effective solutions. Educational institutions in Britain and America continue to use the magnetic mine crisis as a case study in crisis management and technical problem-solving. Business schools analyze the organizational response. Engineering programs study the technical solutions. Military academies examine the strategic implications. The lessons extend far beyond their historical context. Veterans who participated in the magnetic mine crisis carried profound insights from their experience. John Ouvry, who risked his life defusing the first mine, later reflected, "We faced a weapon that seemed invincible until we understood it. Once understood, it was simply another problem to solve." The Germans never grasped that secrecy is less powerful than shared knowledge. Charles Goodwin, who developed degaussing, became a leader in post-war scientific development. He often told colleagues, "The magnetic mine taught us that no single weapon wins wars. Victory comes from systematic response, industrial application, and refusing to be paralyzed by fear." The Germans gave us a gift. They showed us we could overcome any challenge through cooperation. The story that began on the mudflats of Schubenus in November 1939 revealed fundamental truths about modern warfare. Technical innovation alone could not secure victory. Industrial capacity mattered more than scientific brilliance. Cooperation defeated secrecy. The magnetic mine, designed to starve Britain, instead bolstered Allied confidence. The weapon meant to demonstrate German superiority, instead revealed Allied adaptability. Ultimately, the story of German magnetic mines and Allied degaussing is one of assumptions shattered and realities revealed. The Germans assumed their secret would remain hidden, their advantage permanent, and their enemies helpless. They discovered that secrets can be solved, advantages neutralized, and enemies more capable than imagined. The transformation from terror to irrelevance took less than a year. The weapon that paralyzed British shipping in November 1939 had become a routine hazard by November 1940. The magnetic mine's failure was complete, comprehensive, and permanent. It stands as historical proof that in modern warfare there are no permanent secrets, no lasting advantages, and no weapons that cannot be countered through determination, cooperation, and industrial night.